Your job? Find the bug.
Okay, we should check the user report.
Scan the logs for any red flags.
See what exceptions were thrown.
I always start by drawing up strategies to sift through the code.
Code, right? Code, right? Pose. So at the end of the day, we're looking to kind of break the password here, right? Maybe the answer's in the question. Maybe it's something with bug.
Eureka!
Bug like fly. The fly. Is Chetty a cinephile?
Goldblum.
Goldblum!
Boggles my mind that no one has a notebook out. You guys are focused on writing this gibberish. Maybe that's helpful, maybe it's not, but I guarantee you what we're saying is helpful.
Guys, we're looking for a bug, not a password. They're different things.
For some reason, I can't get fly out of my mind, and now I'm going Lopez. Jennifer Lopez. Is it a fly girl?
Superfly, pop fly, excavation, earthquakes, California.
That's it. Write that down. Do it. Do it.
Where?
Write it down. But type it in.
What am I doing?
Please stop.
No, we're working.
No, we're working.
Look, guys, I'm sorry, but you're not helping. You're saying a lot of words really fast that mean nothing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to OT Exposed Raw. We're back. I'm Clint Bodungeon, your host. Well, one of your hosts. And what was that? That was the 2013 film, The Internship. Why did I choose that one for our intro? I'll get to that, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with salespeople providing solutions for problems, and chaos reigns throughout the cybersecurity solutions world. We're going to discuss that and more coming up on OT Exposed Raw. What's up, everybody? So yeah, in that movie, it was Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and they play two sales guys going to do an internship at Google. And that was a scene where they had to solve a problem. They had to fix bugs, and they were just getting it all wrong, and it was chaos, and they were saying all these words and buzzwords and all this stuff flying. And that's really kind of how I feel right now about OT cybersecurity in the aftermath of all of the malware in the industry, and or whether it's in the news of someone trying to poison a water supply or hacking our meat, more meat jokes, but hacking our meat supply and our fuel supply. And it just seems like the aftermath of that is just everybody's ambulance chasing. Everybody's out there providing solutions. And there's actually some pretty bad solutions and rhetoric being thrown around out there. And so in today's episode, we want to focus on talking about some of the rhetoric that's out there and how people kind of have the wrong focus when it comes to cybersecurity and OT cybersecurity, and how they're looking at this and how to refocus this and talk about some of the myths and dispel some of that, and talk about some solutions and how people should be looking at cybersecurity. And as usual, we're going to keep it unprofessional. So let's welcome our co-host. And again, I just don't have anything left to say about the guy anymore. I said it all. I got no jokes. I need a new writer. So let's welcome Pascal Ackerman.
Woo! I'll send you some jokes that you can use, right? For
Okay.
the next episode. Glad to be on again. A second week in a row. I'm home. Just full disclosure, the neighbors behind us, they like to go into promiscuous mode, so anything can happen. Keep your eyes on that brown house in the back.
Wait, are you talking about their network, or are you talking about some activities that maybe we should have a different show for?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, all right. Well,
I'm just glad that stuff isn't burning down here, because at any moment in your neighborhood, there could be hackers right now, right? That's the kind of news that's been...
yeah, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yep. So your neighbors could be hackers.
That's right. They could be me. So, one thing, my video game background for this week is Pong. Okay, Pong. And I'm not going to tell you why I chose Pong. It's kind of hard. It's actual Atari Pong. So it's flashing. It's the demo. It's the start screen. So it'll go from black to cyan to magenta to fuchsia, whatever. So you really can't see it. But anyway, I want you to keep that in mind, and we'll introduce our guests. I want you to keep that in mind on why I chose Pong this week. So anyway, for our guest this week, somebody I go quite a ways back with, not in Pong, but just in general. So, I mean, visually, he may look like Moby meets Lex Luthor, but I can promise you from a cybersecurity perspective, he's a real Superman. So everybody, let's welcome the founder of Houston Cybersecurity Conference, aka Hou.Sec.Con. Probably co-founder he wants me to introduce, I don't know, but the founder in my mind, in my heart, Michael Farnum.
Hey guys, what's up? Speaking about Hou.Sec.Con, got the I don't remember what year shirt this was, but
Which one
all
is that?
Doctor Who themed. Sorry, my
There you go.
Cyberman. Upgrading is mandatory. Time Lord, yeah, there we go. We didn't even plan that, Pascal.
Yeah, full disclosure,
Wow.
we did not plan this. It just
No, it just happened.
wardrobe malfunction.
And Clint, your writers are very yeah, you need to work on that. Moby meets Lex Luthor. That was hilarious. That was really good,
I mean,
actually.
sorry that and that was I was showing my kids a who's going to be on the show today, and I was like, the conference that really helped spawn Red versus Blue, that's him. And I show him a picture, and he literally said, "Daddy, that looks like Moby and Lex Luthor combined."
So
I'm just kidding.
I'm just
kidding. I can't blame it on my kids. I'm just kidding. That's something I literally just came up with like right before the show today.
That was good.
So
that was good.
Anyway, actually, it's because I was watching betas, the TV series betas, and there was a scene where like the primary investor was playing a flute while Moby was up there playing guitar, and I was sitting there going, "It's like," and I literally thought about it. I was like, you know what? That kind of looks like a joke. That kind of reminds me of Michael Farnum, so I made a joke about it.
That's perfect.
We could have gone way worse. We could have gone way worse.
No. It was
so you're lucked out. You lucked out.
Yeah, Clint's called me worse multiple times. So.
Well, no. All right. Anyway, so let's move right along. So, and I want to keep it open, Michael. You heard me back there in my Pong. I want you to see if by the end of the show y'all can guess why I used Pong for my background. So, anyway, one of the topics for today, or the topic for today, is FUD and overcomplicating cybersecurity and all this. And so before we get started, one of the things that I do want to mention is that over the last couple of weeks, happened about 3 weeks ago. And so on the positive side of OT cybersecurity, they released in a day, it's the cybersecurity, or the ISA, Global Cybersecurity Alliance. They came out with the top 20 secure PLC coding practices. It's been needed for a long time. Dale Peterson has advocated for more secure design. Cybersecurity is a design problem, etc. Well, one of the things that I want to acknowledge, I mean, it's great. This is it. Everybody thought the impetus for this was at S4. And it goes further back, and I think the people that actually really started this movement for the PLC secure coding practices aren't really getting any credit for this. And so I want to make sure they get their due credit, because the way that this started, the way before this topic even got to S4, was I worked with Isaiah Jones and Brian Foster at a prior company. Actually, the company, the life before ThreatGen, it's hard to imagine that time, but my life before ThreatGen, I worked with Isaiah Jones and Brian Foster, and they wrote a 3-part article that was the secure coding practice, secure PLC coding practices, or something about that. And Isaiah ended up moving on. We all move on. Isaiah ended up moving on to Jacobs Engineering. While there, he worked with Jake Brodsky. Jake Brodsky presented the idea at S4, and that's how it ended up at S4. And Jake recently wrote an article that he said that he didn't expect it to take off, but it did. And so that's how the entire top 20 secure PLC coding practices thing was born. Those were the original whatever you want to call it, brainchilders, whatever. Anyway, but That's kind of how it happened. But I just want to say, kudos to all the professionals and everybody out there who made that happen, because it's definitely something good for the industry. It's something that's needed. So on that note, let's flip it back around and let's start our topic today. Before, is there anything, I guess we'll talk at the end of the show a little bit about Hou.Sec.Con there, Michael. And but before we get there, so let's talk about some things that have happened over maybe really an article or two, that some things that have happened in the news. And let me go ahead and bring that back up. Oops. There we go.
I heard you say oops.
Yep, that was me saying oops. I don't care. This is a live show. It's uncut. Anyway, So an article, let me enhance. All right, enhance. So there was an article that came out where they're talking about going back a few weeks to SolarWinds hack and how this could have been deterred by simple security measures, and their security measures weren't just simple; they were asinine. And
they were simple.
Yeah, they were simple, but asinine. I'm going to go ahead and pause now. I'm just introducing it, and Pascal, you had the most to say, so I'm going to let you have first shot at tearing this one apart.
I actually shared this one on LinkedIn because I saw the headline. I'm like, okay, let's see if they actually tackled the right advice. You got to do segmentation, you got to go blah blah blah. But no, they go in and they said, they literally, if you scroll down, it's in the text. They literally said, if these guys would have blocked every single port on their firewall, so basically deny any rule, it would have been prevented. I'm like, duh. I'm like, that's the worst advice you can give. They took that out of context because Reuters came out with an article on the same topic, and they explained it well. If they would have blocked unused ports coming from these servers, this could have been prevented, which is the right advice to give here. But this just shows that you got to find your sources properly for your cybersecurity news.
I keep hitting the wrong button there. So, and you have any comments there, Michael?
I mean, no, I always like an article that talks about basics because the care and feeding stuff that so many people don't do is absolutely frustrating. Nothing in here blew me away to say, you should do this. I mean, I think if you tie this and go back to the article that you just had, there are so many things that are following on, and I meant the top 20 things as well. Both of those together, there's so many things that are following in OT cybersecurity now, like the top 20 secure PLC coding practices project. I mean, what in my mind it immediately brings me to like an OWASP project, right? The top 10 vulnerabilities in OWASP and how OWASP is building out multiple different top 10s in IoT and in gaming and in mobile and all of that. So, I mean, these are all things that are that have been done in IT cybersecurity that we're finally starting to see more frequently in OT cybersecurity, and the basic care and feeding concept of just doing asset management, doing things that you should do. You can't block everything on the firewall. That's silly. You got to have, I mean, the most secure thing in the world is, the server in the world. It's what we always say is unplugged and in a block of concrete, down in the bottom of the ocean. I mean, nobody can get to it, but it's not usable. So I'm encouraged by the articles like this as aggravating as they can be. But when you start combining this, I'm starting to see some of that basic stuff starting to come together from in OT cybersecurity that's really exciting.
I think one of the things that frustrates me is that anytime you have events in the news that are high profile, so we had first the Florida water plant were almost poisoning. We had the Colonial situation. And sorry, I don't think any of us actually have an alcoholic beverage right now, but so we had that situation. But the aftermath of this, we have all this ransomware, and we have the everyone talking about it, but it made high profile news because it caused shortages in whether it's petroleum or fuel or meat, toilet paper, whatever. And you have everybody latching onto it, and it's really good that everybody wants to jump on this and take care of the problem, but this has been a problem for decades. And it seems to me that whenever you have high profile things that happen, you get more ambulance chasing type media out there in terms of now all of a sudden, this is why I go back to the video that I had at the beginning of the show, because it does just seem like we have the wrong focus in cybersecurity. Number one, nobody starts making any noise or nobody starts putting their stuff out there until there's an incident, and then everybody jumps on the bandwagon and says, "Ooh, time to sell, time to sell." And then I think we have, as an industry, I think we have too many buzzwords and too many solutions being thrown out there by salespeople and marketing teams. I mean, where the hell did OT come from? I mean, back in the day, no actual engineers like the term OT. We damn sure don't like industrial Internet of Things. I mean, this is all bullshit that's created by sales teams, marketing teams, and it's also that any technology company, any firm, they can make themselves look like pioneers to have the next greatest thing. Ooh, look, mine's new. It's different. It's got a new word. And so as a result, you're getting rhetoric, you're getting FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then you're also getting other stupid news articles out there, because in the media, of course, world's worst ambulance chasers is there was another article that just came out last week or this week or whenever it was, I think Newsweek even, about, oh, well, now a California water plant almost had their water poisoned. Of course, they talked to the engineers. I'm like, no, that didn't happen. I mean, they didn't try to poison our water system. We have safety systems in place. And the bottom line is that it doesn't really work that way with control systems. So I want to get y'all's perspective on my rant, my soapbox. I want to get y'all's perspective on just the ambulance chasing, the bad security advice out there, the wrong perspective. And I'll have some follow-on topics on the wrong perspective. But what's your take on that?
I'll let you go first. No?
Oh, you want me to go? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Well,
round robin.
Yeah. So, there's a ton to unpack in there, Clint. I don't disagree with you. So I posted something not too long ago on LinkedIn that was about using security terms and creating terms, and the how some people just absolutely hate terms. I'm a little bit less curmudgeon-y than most people when it comes to industry terms because I actually see them as helpful to be able to bring concepts together that are easier to explain.
You and I have talked about this before.
Yeah. So I don't generally have an issue. Like, I've gone back and forth with a few people about Internet of Things and that kind of. I always thought it was kind of cool, but I've also got a base marketing gene in me that a lot of people in this industry don't have, that I kind of glom onto those things, but they help me explain things. But beyond that, just the industry terms. Yeah, it's always ambulance chasing. I mean, the biggest thing right now, I don't know if it's as much in OT, but is IT, is zero trust. And we just interviewed not too long ago John Kindervog on a podcast about zero trust. When you talk to the guy who essentially, you can say he created it or he popularized it or kind of focused it or however you want to look at it. But when you got the guy who essentially brought this thing to the world, go, look, this is not really that complicated. You just have to do a few things and you can make this happen. But then you go out and look at every single vendor. And if they watch this, I'll probably make some vendors mad because I deal with them every single day. But, and I love my vendors, a lot of work with them, and their reason in a lot of ways that we're in business, but every one of them glom onto that particular term, zero trust. And none of them really have a full idea of what it means. They just use it as a marketing term, and they can fit it in. It's the same thing with useful things like MITRE ATT&CK framework. They all go throw that stuff in there and try to, or the kill chain or whatever. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, and it does drive me absolutely crazy. I guess after doing this and dealing with vendors in this space for 20 plus years, I've started to just kind of nod my head and go, okay. And then my job is to go to my customers and go, this is what you really should think about that. And that's just kind of how I get over it in my own brain. But I totally get the frustration.
Pascal, you have any thoughts there? Because
two things. First of all, I agree. Using the terms, I'll use buzzwords and terms, whatever is necessary to get the point across, and it helps. A lot of people have heard about it. They might have heard a little bit about it, and it helps set the stage, and it helps them get the point across. I also think that this is actually a really good situation to be in. Ambulance chasing is often a sign of the focus of the focus finally getting onto the OT cybersecurity space, right? We've seen it on the IT side as well. Once things started ramping up, you had all of these companies. They did FUD, they did buzzwords, they did anything to sell and to be like the next big company to buy into. We're seeing the same thing on the OT side, which means that we're getting more focus on it. I think it is eventually going to go away. I think we need to just keep advocating that simple is the best way to go at this moment.
I agree with both of you and what Michael said specifically about if it helps people understand. And let me be clear about my stance on this. If it truly helps people get it and understand, yes, I'm all for it. If it is an overly gratuitous use of buzzwords or just trying to come up with something new so that
trying
you can
to
try
sell
to
something.
Yeah, or just because you could try to differentiate yourself, your product, or something like that. And I'm not innocent, right? I mean, I have also built products taking advantage of buzzwords, red versus blue. But I don't think we're trying to invent anything. And I kind of did at one point and didn't work. So I'm not innocent. But I guess what illustrates my stance on it and what changed my mind mostly was the buzzword purple teaming. I hate the buzzword purple teaming because, quite frankly, the way that everybody has explained purple teaming to me, it makes me think, oh, so you mean red teaming done properly? Because in order to do a proper red team, you are supposed to properly engage the blue team as well. Otherwise, it's completely one-sided.
Yep.
And so to me, the term purple teaming is just doing red teaming right. However, there's a reason people weren't doing red teaming right, apparently. And if using the term purple teaming makes people understand that you're supposed to engage the blue team as well, win-win for everybody, and I think that understanding that helps me be okay with properly used buzzwords as opposed to me just being grumpy, get off my lawn guy, which I'm probably always going to be. So, but yeah,
I see you do that in the neighborhood. It's not called purple teaming. It's not called purple teaming.
Get off my lawn.
I think they've called the cops on him a couple of times for that.
Yeah.
That is cul-de-sac.
Yeah. Give me my Gran Torino. Anyway, so
I like
let's switch
that
gears. Let's switch gears a little bit, and instead of just griping about the buzzwords, let's talk about the actual advice that's being given about there and the perspective. Because I watch your Cyber Sundays and stuff, Michael, and your shows as well, and I was really inspired by your talk. It was so cool. You were in the parking lot and you were illustrating your talk about supply chain because there were no cars in the parking lot because of the microchip shortage. So it's really cool. That was a great idea. But let's talk a little bit about the perspective, because I think, and I'll talk last, but I think that the industry is overcomplicating cybersecurity. And I think that we're looking at it in the wrong way with so much technology and products out there and people and training and services. And I think there's a different way to look at it. So how should we be looking at cybersecurity we keep saying simplify things. Simplify, go back to simple, Pong. And how should we be looking at cybersecurity and what perspective so that we could think about it in an easier way?
It's your turn first this time, Pascal.
All right. So, and I keep coming back to this, but most companies out there are not ready for all the buzzword companies, the solutions. They don't need an AI powered SIM solution that tells them next week you're going to get infiltrated by somebody from Russia or something. Most companies still need the basics, and that's what I mean with simple. Start with the basics: secure coding, segmentation, proper architecture. Maybe do some code review. Maybe look at your logs every once in a while, and that will get you a long way already. And then once you got all that figured out, there's going to be 1,000 companies to choose from for the next step. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, one of the primary examples I use of that perspective, and it's exactly where I would have gone with it, Pascal, where I was thinking. One of the big examples I use, and please don't hear me saying this is bad tech. It is, there's probably two. It's advanced tech, but I'll focus on one, which is all around deception technology. So deception technology is cool. So I mean, think honeypotting with a whole lot of bells and whistles, and being able to do golden images of your machines and really fool people going into your network on what they're going after, and make them look and think they're going after something real. Not easy to fingerprint them, so attackers know that it's not real, that kind of thing. Great tech. It's really cool, can do some really cool informative things in your network, not only just stopping people, but knowing where attackers are coming into your network. However, it's a very advanced type of tech that I've had a ton of problems explaining to the vendors in the space that it's hard for me to sell that, because most of my customers, or a lot of my customers, aren't ready for it yet. All that's going to do is add to the cacophony of noise that they already have right now, that they're trying to whittle down, and you're going to add a ton more on top of it. They need to do some of the basic stuff. So I agree, things need to get simplified. Anything you add into an environment, whether it's a security tool or not, adds to your attack surface. It also adds to your business cost. It adds to all kinds of bad things potentially if you get simple and then come at it. That's why standards exist. I mean, those are things that do these things first. And then to your point, Pascal, you'll have all of this different tech at your fingertips that will help you go put. But if you read the latest trade rag and you go, oh, I want that thing, you're just getting yourself in a world of hurt.
That's the easy button mentality, right? So what are you going to do with the latest and greatest tech that you said that spits up another 1,000 logs if you don't even have a SOC or the incident response team to do something with the findings?
Exactly right.
And that's where a lot of these companies go wrong. They're like, oh, this is the easy button. As soon as they install it, we don't have any more issues. Well, no, that's not how that works.
I think so. From my perspective, I think one of the problems that I see my customers having the most is it's twofold. Number one is when I know about all of my problems, my vulnerabilities, and all of that, when I know about them, there's so many. It's all about, well, what do I do? How do I fix it? What do I do first? It's an overwhelming task. And then number two, there's all these solutions out there, and there's all this tech out there, and there's all these services and all these companies. How do I make A fit B, and how do I do it? And where do I start, or what do I do next? That's the number one problem my customers have. How do I get my head around this? How do I deal with it? And how do I, so our goal is how do we simplify it for the industry, for customers, or whatever? And here's what my answer is. This is my perspective. Number one, vulnerabilities are not Pokemon. You don't got to catch them all, right? And you don't have to fix them all. But so how do you know? And all this tech and everything, people are focusing on cybersecurity from the wrong angle. It's like superstring theory, right? Okay, maybe not. But you got to look at it from the perspective of what the hell are we doing cybersecurity for in the first place? So people like Pascal, yeah, you're Superman, and you want to chase down the bad guys and be a vigilante and all that goes. Okay, that's probably not you. That's
Put on
probably
a
me.
cape.
But either way, my point is cyber, this whole cyber thing. At the end of the day, what are we protecting? Are we protecting our computers? Are we protecting our personal data? It just really depends on where that cyber is, right? So if it's an industrial control system, then you're protecting against kinetic damage, loss of productivity, safety issues. If you're a bank, you're protecting against data theft that turns into financial crimes, financial data loss, credit cards, whatever. So the bottom line is, if you start first with what is it that I'm protecting, then you go to the next step. What is the next step? Is there a cyber vector? Is there a cyber attack surface that allows that risk to be realized? So number one, what am I protecting? Number two, is there even a cyber vector into that? Because if you're trying to go and catch them all, those vulnerability Pokemon, and you don't even have an attack surface to that vulnerability, or there's no connection to that vulnerability, then there's no point in fixing the vulnerabilities on that attack surface. And so that's it. If when we're doing cybersecurity, the bottom line is cybersecurity is securing cyber vectors to the risk to whatever you're trying to protect. And so that's where you go first. Once you figure out if there's a cyber vector there, then you start looking at, okay, how do we mitigate that cyber vector to that risk? Do we reduce access? Do we fix the attack surface, or do we reduce the impact of that risk? So if you reverse it, just like, what's that song? Flip it around, reverse it. Anyway, if you reverse it, and I'm so old and white. If you flip it around and reverse it from that angle, I think that's where you start with being able to simplify this entire process, instead of starting it from this end and say, look at all this tech. Oh my God, look at all my vulnerabilities. How do I deal with all this? Start with what you're protecting first, and are there any cyber vectors? Then deal with it. I yield the floor, gentlemen.
I love your optimism. I absolutely do. But you know what? The real matter of the fact is that most companies out there, and especially in the OT space, and I'm going to use OT because you don't like that word, most companies out there, they can't be bothered with this. They have just enough resources to keep the plant running. They don't have the extra manpower to go out, or the budget to go out, or hire somebody to go out and go through this whole process. So I say protect it all, shield off your OT environment as much as you can, and then give yourself some time to catch up when you have time to catch up.
I don't disagree with that at all either. I mean, it's that this being OT vector, I mean, it's basic. This is where's the money coming from? What are the things you have to protect? It all comes down to the business decision. OT for this specific show, that's what we're talking about, right? And that's what you need to protect. How do you isolate it? I mean, it's basic stuff. I mean, I talk about asset management to companies constantly. They're like, you don't even know where everything is. So
here's an Excel sheet.
Well, and you're lucky if you get that. I mean, and if it is, it's not even anywhere recent. It's generally so old that nobody's adding to it or whatever, and who's maintaining it. There are just those basic things that need to get done, so you can that's why managed services tend to be so big these days, because people, to your point, Pascal, people don't have the time and effort to do it. The problem is there's so many managed services that they're trying to hit so many different customers that they can't do it well either, because they have to know so many different things. We're victims of our own success in some ways. There's so many companies that offer so many different things, and how do you focus on what you're supposed to do? Again, that's why standards exist. Yep. Fix it based on standards. Do what Clint's talking about. Clint, what you're talking about is the basis of every single cybersecurity standard out there. Every single one of them. Do those things.
if nothing else, open up the NIST cybersecurity framework. Start there, right? That's a fantastic way to get a lot of traction really quick.
But I think there's a balance too, right? I mean, number one, you're right, Pascal, that people don't have the resources to do a lot of this. However, in the industrial space, a lot of this is already done because they have to do this with when it comes to safety systems. They have to figure out risks and consequences and that's for the companies that do a HazOps or a hazards analysis for safety systems, right? I mean, not every company does that, but that's what should be done. So a lot of this data about what are we protecting, at least in the industrial space, is already done. And I think that once you move away from industrial and you get into the corporate sectors, I think that IT departments and IT cybersecurity have a lot more resources than you do find in industrial. So I don't think it's beyond reason to ask companies to know what they're protecting.
Actually, that's a good point, because that's why I normally recommend dumping as many of your OT systems on the IT side, because it's easier to quantify and to get a budget on that side. And if a system doesn't necessarily have to be on the OT side, it's a good decision to make, to put it on the IT where it can be scrutinized more.
I think you need to clarify what you mean by systems, though, because in the industrial space,
yeah. So like your workstations that go out and program PLCs, there's no need to have those permanently sitting on the OT side, or even the laptop that people take home and then they take into the plant and they hook up to the Wi-Fi and they start programming on the OT side. No, leave those on the IT side and use a firewall or a DMZ to broker that service. That way your attack surface is way smaller.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that back up about the DMZ, because we get a lot of pushback from people telling us, no, you can't put this in IT or whatever. But if you have a proper broker service like a DMZ or whatever, you can.
There's magic. There's magic to be done with remote desktop gateway solutions.
Oh, we got put TeamViewer on everything, right?
As long as it's on the enterprise side, I don't care.
That's been the attack vector in all of these water plant poisoning attacks, right? So
exactly. And and I think that goes back to understanding what your systems are. Going back to, there are already OT systems in the IT network. When you have accounting systems and you have scheduling systems and all of that, there's already cross-talk.
MES, ERP, you name it.
Exactly. And so, it's funny, this whole buzzword about, or what people don't like when it terms of the word convergence, right? There's so many people that hate wearing the word convergence. And I think it's too many people they mean different things when it comes to convergence. Because from my perspective and what I understand convergence to mean, IT OT convergence is already happening, and it's already happened. It's happening, and you have to accept that. All right, we got he's gonna mute now. I want to hear the dogs. Hey, Pascal, who let the dogs out?
I don't know, but I told you about these.
The dog barked right on cue.
That's what happens. This
that
is
was
action.
great.
The whole neighborhood is going crazy right now.
Well, and you had a cat running around behind you too. I want to see a fight.
That was a smaller dog. It's just nibbles for our dog.
Lunch.
Oh, he's on full alert right now.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So, talk to us a little bit. You had some supply chain is a big deal. I really enjoyed your talk on your Cyber Saturday on Sunday. And
Cyber Sunday on Saturday.
Can you pick apart a few pieces from what you said? I don't want to put you on the spot. I should have warned you. But what are some of your thoughts on, because right now it is supply chain, not only from vendor supply chain, but supply chain to consumers. And I liked a lot of what you had to say, and that applies to what we're talking about here. So you can talk about a little bit about what you did last weekend.
Yeah, it was specifically, so anybody who has ever talked to me knows that I'm generally a pretty big AppSec guy. I've done that for several years in my career. So it specifically was around how the supply chain attacks that have happened, which is like SolarWinds, which is Apple even had some issues with it. There's just a ton of issues around supply chain attacks. And it's because people aren't thinking about what all the elements are that go into whatever they're creating. And from the perspective of, for people who haven't seen it, I was at the car dealership getting my truck worked on, and I was panning around to the whole parking lot, and I knew this had been coming because I've been talking to my dealer, but literally the parking lot was almost completely empty. There were probably 10 or 15 cars on this whole lot. And this is a volume dealer. That's like the highest volume dealer in Texas for 20 years running or something. So they usually got hundreds and hundreds of cars on the lot. And it's all because of or a ton of it is because of COVID interrupting supply chains, and a lot of the chips that the cars need to go on the road, those manufacturers have switched over to something else temporarily so they can keep making money. And now they're having problems getting new cars out. So I just likened that supply chain. It's like, okay, here's a weakness in a supply chain that nobody would have thought of. Nobody had any idea was coming because of COVID. How do you switch back quickly? How do you protect that supply chain? And how it relates to these things now, I mean, in OT specifically, you have the same issues. Availability in something when something breaks in your network, that is, do you have backups to that? Do you have something to go replace that part in your network that you can keep on monitoring whatever service you're trying to monitor, whether that's something in a plant or wherever. Those supply chain issues you have to guard against, and it's becoming increasingly difficult. And you think it would be easier these days in a modern world, but it's becoming more difficult because there's so many pieces that go into it that you don't know what you have to guard against. And then it just comes down to planning too, because I mean, risk. You talked about risk earlier, Clint. Who would have predicted the risk of a pandemic? I mean, that you have to weigh those realistically. That's what they've always taught us, right? You weigh your risks realistically, and pandemic, volcanoes, earthquakes, those things don't happen that often generally. So, well, earthquakes do, but you know what I mean? So that's what it was all about.
Hurricanes happen every year here. But.
That's true.
So, and I think a lot of ways, that's kind of what Dale Peterson is predicting in the SBOM market. He says that the, secure bill of materials market is going to be heating up for that reason. And I think blockchain and zero trust is going to solve everything.
It is. As long as it's AI powered.
AI powered,
AI
software
powered.
Defined, blockchain, zero trust
SBOM
of things.
No, I'm actually pretty bullish on, not want to say, but it's like anything else. I'm actually a fan of zero trust as a concept. The implementation of it, and as I talked about before, I think I mentioned on here, I can't remember if it was during this or after. Yeah, it was during this. When I talked to Kindervog about it, it doesn't have to be that complicated, but it gets crazy complicated. But it's not a panacea. I mean, I talked to a vendor yesterday that was all about blocking blocking applications from jumping around in memory in a machine, which is a complete pure indicator. If they start doing some weird stuff in memory, that they're probably doing something it's being used in an attack. So if you can block that, you block a ton of issues, a lot of vulnerabilities, but it doesn't block everything, because when I started pinging them on other pieces around, okay, well, what if it's a just-in-time compiled application? What happened? Oh, well, no, we have to go back to the old school. It's like, see, there's always something that's going to get around it.
Yep.
And that's why you put monitoring next to it, right? You block the most common stuff, and then you put monitoring on that stuff. So when an attacker tries to do something, and they're going to hit the simple stuff first, and then they hit a barrier, and you report on that. You say, haha, something is going on. So you can report on that before they take the next route over and find that vulnerability that's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I think that it's worth mentioning that I think in this should be a duh statement, but security monitoring definitely works a lot better when you already have some layered defenses in place. Otherwise, it goes back to what I said before in previous conversations with people, that if you have security monitoring without any basics in place, then it's basically putting an alarm system on a framed house but no walls. Whereas security monitoring is very effective if you have layers that they have to bump into first. You're minimizing their ability to just run rampant through your system, and you're just watching your shit get stolen. So,
and don't forget, you have something in place to actually act upon, because just looking at somebody, hey, somebody is trying to break in, but then not being able to call the police or to defend yourself, it's not going to fly either.
Yep. Well, we are about at the end of our designated time, but I'd like to take some time before we, we're right at the end of our official broadcast, but I would like to take some time to talk to Michael a little bit about, so he's founder, and I guess, were you original? I've never known this. Are you the original founder and then Sam got involved, or did you and Sam found Hou.Sec.Con together?
It depends on how you look at it. So I had actually had somebody else and I were talking about doing a conference that was going to hop from city to city within Texas, and which was if you remember, the Texas Regional Infrastructure Security Conference, TRISC, that ISSA and ISACA and everybody got together. They were doing that, and we wanted to do something but not be so vendor driven. That didn't work out. So I ended up saying, I just 1 year, I got a wild hair, and we were going to do it by October. And I said in July, we're going to do a conference. We had everything, because I did that little user group here locally, National Information Security Group, user group that I used to do. So I came up with the concept to get that done. And then about 2 or 3 years in, I was breaking away from the National Information Security Group, which was kind of the basis that I was using to pull in money and get sponsors and so on and so forth. I think my camera just went out of focus. But when I did that, I didn't have a way of pulling the money that I had raised out of that organization to start independently. And that's a whole nother story we can talk about over beers. And so that was about 2 or 3 years in. And then Sam said, well, hey, I'll basically just front some money that we needed to get our 501c3 and 401k and all, not 401k, 501c3 and local nonprofit. I don't know where 401k came from. So he helped front that to get it started. And when he did that, we became independent and became Hou.Sec.Con by ourselves. So I just basically now just call us both co-founders, because he was the one that saved us essentially, and I owe him a ton. That's Sam Van Ryder. I don't know if everybody knows him, but
yeah, I was going to get there with that, and didn't want to know if he wanted us saying his name, but I'd leave that up to you. But I'm sure Hou.Sec.Con's gotten very successful. I think last live event there was 800 attendees.
Yeah, we had about 800 people. We started at 120 back in 2010. Did it at the local Microsoft offices because it was a free venue. We've hopped from hotel to hotel, and now we're pretty much in Marriott Marquis, downtown Houston. If you've never been there, it's a absolutely gorgeous place. Ton of sponsors, ton of people all in Houston and Texas, and we got people coming nationally as well. They come in. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun. It's a labor of love. We're all volunteer driven. We don't get paid for it. We just do it. This year it's October 6th and 7th. We're about to get the website and stuff up. We're a little late because of COVID, and we didn't know if we were going to do it. Now we know we are. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. Got a call for papers coming out, all kinds of stuff.
So yeah, that's where we met. I think it was Hou.Sec.Con 3 or 4. 3 or 4.
Yeah, you did a talk on you had that big monster
box. And we broke it. So that was the out of control demonstration that Brian Mikesell, Eric Forner, and Dylan Beresford built. And they did it at Black Hat. And then so we did it at Hou.Sec.Con, and it broke, so we weren't able to do the live demonstration. And instead,
at the point,
It looks really cool on the stage.
We just set up. No, it like physically broke. We couldn't do it. So I had to show. Fortunately, I had a video of it, and we did it there, and it was an ordeal. But then after that, I remember talking specifically to Sam, and I volunteered to run audio video because I had the equipment. So I did shitty audio video work for you for a couple of years. I think the AV work at the conference was fine, and that was really all due to we had good equipment, we had good volunteers. It was the follow-up, I never could seem to get videos done properly.
We've got about 3 years of videos still in your vault somewhere that we can put out there.
I think it's only one, maybe two. Anyway, I dropped the ball on you so many times, and I'm surprised you're still wanting me to hang around. So
I just don't give you anything important to do anymore, Clint.
Necessary evil.
Well, the funny thing was, and the reason I'm bringing all this up, and the reason I'm giving Hou.Sec.Con plugs here and everything, is because if it was not for Hou.Sec.Con, Red versus Blue would not exist. Red versus Blue was not just the catalyst. Hou.Sec.Con was not just the catalyst for Red versus Blue. It was the genesis. It was, and the way that happened was we did a shitty Red versus Blue class for you the year before, and so there's a theme. Do you notice there's a theme here? I provide shitty services to Farnum. And
he fixes it up. He makes it nice.
And people paid for that shitty stuff, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Man.
So but we, and it was it was that time when I realized that anything trying to do a Red versus Blue in a day, you're not going to do anything but show people some parlor tricks. And so you came back to me the next year, to my surprise. You were desperate, and so
I was desperate. Clearly, I had nobody else I could go to, so you were my last choice.
There you go. See,
you're my main man.
Do it again. And so I said, sure, but I was like, there's no way we can do it like we did last time. And so at the time, I had just come out of some development, some training. We were trying to use gamification. At that time, it wasn't called gamification, another buzzword. It was just using computer gaming engines to create trading environments for OT, cybersecurity, and stuff like that. And we were doing that. And my colleague, Aaron Shabib, we were working on becoming game developers for this reason. And then I remember I was working on just some things that were similar. And I said, I think we can do a game to put it more at strategic level and do a Red versus Blue at more strategic level using a game. That'd be fun. And so you're like, okay. And I went to go talk to Aaron, and he looked like a deer in the headlights. He's like, you want to do what? He's like, you want to develop a game in 8 weeks? And so I was like, I didn't have anything to lose because I'm already let you down so many times already. It's like you were expecting me to let you down.
The bar was like way down here.
Yeah. So we built a game. We literally built it was the Red versus Blue alpha prototype. We did it in 8 weeks and debuted the Red versus Blue alpha prototype at a class, nonetheless, with paying customers. And it was a pretty full class with some reputable people in it. And it didn't suck. It didn't fail. And then from that point on, I remember there were people, Art came to us and he said, dude, you could sell this. And I'm like, what? And so a lot of people were like, dude, you should do this. You could build this. And so Red versus Blue was born because of that. So
yeah, I'm very honored, honestly, to be a part of that history. It all born out of just, you submitting a talk one year to Hou.Sec.Con, getting accepted, and boom.
I wasn't even the one that submitted it. It was Brian Meixel and Eric Forner that did it. And Forner couldn't make it.
That's right.
Fill in.
You had to do it, and then boom, it's all.
And I broke everything.
That's the way things work. Well, it wasn't just you. I mean, there were, y'all were transporting that thing in hallways to a hotel.
So if I get it right, Red versus Blue was created because you sucked.
Yes, quite frankly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
but you know that's the perfect use case, right? Take people that don't know cybersecurity or that aren't good with cybersecurity, and you know, I think that it's like a phoenix. It was born from the ashes of shit into something beautiful and powerful. It's like,
wow, that's
it's
deep.
not a. Is that a phoenix or a group? Yeah, it's a phoenix.
That's
right?
a phoenix. Yeah,
So
you had to die first to come.
Yeah,
back.
exactly. And so anyway. You know, you're honored to be a part of the history. I'm honored to have helped with that, and I'm, you know, forever grateful for you being, you know, continuing to give me chances and to let Red versus Blue grow to what it is. And so we look forward to being at Hou.Sec.Con again.
That's right. You will be there.
So,
don't worry.
So thank you very much. So anyway, now it's time to go. We ran over our time, but I had to get Hou.Sec.Con in there. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show. Michael Farnum,
Absolutely.
founder of Hou.Sec.Con. Great conversation, and we will see everybody. Oh, and thank you too, Pascal.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, you too.
He's just here.
Yeah. All right. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.